and we both clicked the button at the same time. What's up, everyone? Happy Tuesday. Happy beginning of week 2. We are here at the Stokastic Fantasy Football Channel, talking some waiver wire pickups, talking some quarterbacks, talking tight ends, and I am here with my buddy Nick Lepri to break it all down at Notorious FNTSY on the Twitter. My name's Matt Savoca at Draftaholic. Honestly, guys, thanks so much for hanging out with us this fine Tuesday. Nick, how are you, man?
I'm doing pretty solid now. Last night's game put me down in the dumps. On Twitter, I tweeted out a picture of a television that was broken. I'm pretty sure people think I actually broke my TV. So I thought that was quite funny.
Please tell me you did not actually break your TV. I'm sure you had some Broncos bets that did not go your way.
No, I didn't actually break my TV. The only thing that would ever make me break my TV is if the Dolphins made it to the Super Bowl and they lost. I'd probably break multiple TVs if that happens.
Gotcha. And I have just gotten word that this video is marked private right now. So I'm going to take a moment and make sure. No, that's not true at all.
No, it's not true.
Okay,
I
we're in
checked the
public.
exact same thing.
Okay, so StreamYard is just lying to me. This software, this just a mess. What's up? So we're gonna be talking quarterbacks, tight ends. We got a lot to dig into. We've only got about 40 minutes to dig into it. Hope everyone's week ones went okay. I know that there was some varied scores around the fantasy football world. We had some underperformances, a couple overperformances here and there. What stuck out to you? We'll get to the injuries in a minute, but in terms of players who either overperformed or underperformed their expectations, what stuck out to you in terms of week 1 scoring?
Yeah, my guy Damian Pierce, that motherfucker. I really thought that it was going to be Damian Pierce season, but I'm not running away yet. I think maybe for the first couple of weeks we're going to see Rex Burkhead, and then eventually it's going to be Damian Pierce time. That one really stuck out to me, and what stuck out to I assume most people is that Patrick Mahomes is still good, guys. What a shocker, right? Without Tyreek Hill, Patrick Mahomes is still incredibly good. And I know that shouldn't have surprised you, but I think that surprised a lot of people. And then another one was just how bad that Bears versus 49ers game was because of the rain. And I think we were correct for kind of moving away from that game.
Yeah. And the outcome, of course, was different than what we expected. Ultimately,
Yeah.
the Bears win that game. Justin Fields doesn't throw for a whole lot of yards. Who would expect any quarterback to do it in that kind of weather? But he gets a few players wide open and suddenly changes that game. And San Francisco, not a team that's really designed to be coming back from multiple scores. They're a run first team, especially on a day like Sunday. One thing I'm noticing that based on whatever's going on with our StreamYard software, we may not be able to throw some of the chat onto the screen like we're usually able to. Lepri, if you're able to get the comments going on your side, that's great. But on my side, it's not popping up. I'm of course seeing some questions from you guys. Thanks so much for trickling in, saying hello. I already see one trade question, and since it's QB related, why don't we just start right there, Nick? Derek Carr had a so-so game, and Kirk Cousins had a game that made me kind of say, all right, maybe these MVP conversations should actually perk up. A little ahead of myself, but Carr or Cousins rest of season?
Rest of season, Carr or Cousins, I would still think Carr. I mean, I would have had them back to back in my rankings, so it's not like a drastic drop off from either of the guys. I just think Carr is in a better situation in Las Vegas to be in these very high scoring matchups when compared to the situation that Cousins is in. Now, maybe I'm wrong and maybe Carr just stinks, right? And Cousins is super good, but I don't want to overreact to just one game, especially week 1, because a lot of these starters weren't even playing in preseason. So this is like preseason week 4. So I wouldn't overreact a crazy amount. Now, again, I definitely do still prefer Carr, though.
I'm starting to think Kirk Cousins might be legit, though. They're going to pass a ton. That offense, I mean, obviously we got a game adjusted. It's only one game, small sample size, but the Packers defense isn't expected to be atrocious. They're probably going to be closer to league average. And if that is how Minnesota is performing at home against a league average defense, it's going to be a really fun offense, because there was literally a time I was just watching back the stream this morning of the condensed game, and there's a time where the announcer literally yells about Justin Jefferson. How is he that wide open? If they are scheming players open that well in Minnesota, and obviously the teams will get footage, I'm really excited about what's going to happen for these receivers and for Kirk Cousins. I think it's a lot closer than people realize I might actually go with Cousins.
No, I don't even hate that. I mean, they would be very close in my rankings right now.
All right. Fair enough. We should get to the quarterback tiers. So, one thing we should mention on Tuesday, the Stokastic projections, the same projections that fuel the $1 million DFS winnings of so many professional players, they don't come out till Tuesday night. That's when our first run happens. And so, in the meantime, we're going to utilize the wisdom of the crowd. I think it's really important to use expert consensus rankings to understand where, quote unquote, the market is feeling. It can certainly help us when considering how much to bid for waiver wires if we're in some sort of fab league. But ultimately, what we'll do over the course of the week is shift from the crowd to our statistical projections over at stokastic.com, while also mixing in our own take on those projections as well. So why don't we throw up tier 1, the S tier, and the A tier, the quarterback position. It's names you would absolutely expect. You're starting if you got them. If you have 2 of them, it's only because it's a super flex league. Josh Allen, Mahomes, who is unbelievable, and Lamar Jackson for me.
Yep, I completely agree with you. I want to put them up on the screen right now. Basically, at this point in the season, after one game, these are just the guys that you would expect to be in the S tier, if I'm being honest with you. Lamar Jackson up against the Dolphins defense does scare me ever so slightly, because I do think it is entirely possible that Lamar Jackson does struggle a little bit. He did struggle in that first matchup up against the Dolphins from last season. Now, obviously, that's last season. This is a different season, but I do think Lamar Jackson might struggle a little bit, but the other guys I'm very comfortable with. And I'd even elevate Herbert into this tier because I really believe that Chiefs versus Chargers game is going to be incredibly high scoring.
Yeah, highest total game on the slate. Leaning into that game in DFS, check us out over on the Stokastic DFS channel, but I still think Patrick Mahomes is full on back. They looked creative. They looked explosive. Yeah. Juju fumbled, but he looked really, really wide open in some of these zone coverage schemes. And, of course, Travis Kelce doing his thing. Clyde Edwards-Helaire apparently can score touchdowns, too. So this looks like a fun offense. And Lamar Jackson, still a no-brainer with immense rushing upside. I don't want to spend too much time here because I think a lot of people have more questions down at the bottom. Tier 2, or the A tier, if you're talking gamer talk, that's Justin Herbert in that same game environment against the Kansas City Chiefs. Jalen Hurts, who's going to run the heck out of the ball. And then same with Kyler Murray, who had a so-so game in week 1, but ultimately, I think it's going to be just fine for the Cardinals. I think they're going to have a lot more firepower in terms of playmakers on the outside.
Yeah.
And they're not going to be playing a Kansas City Chiefs team who's scoring every single time they have the ball. So they'll be allowed to be a bit more neutral in their game scripts.
Yeah, that was a game that I expected to go a little bit closer, if I'm being honest with you. I really thought Kyler Murray was going to play a little bit better in that game. Now, I'm not saying that Kyler Murray's washed up because Call of Duty has not dropped yet, so Kyler will be just fine. Hollywood Brown in that game, I thought that he was going to be seeing a lot more targets in that matchup. I had him in all my DFS lineups. I'm someone who doesn't stray away from just doing 100% of one player, so I had 100% McCaffrey, 100% Hollywood Brown, and neither of those really ended up working out, but hey, I still had a profitable day. I liked Kyler Murray a lot, and I think he's going to be just fine this week. And then when it comes to Jalen Hurts, that game was crazy up against the Lions. Like, the Lions could have realistically won that game. And I didn't think the Lions, as we got closer and closer to the game, I was like, oh, the Lions are going to get smoked.
Yeah, that game just way more high scoring than anyone expected. Philadelphia's defense didn't play well, but Jalen Hurts, man, that is going to work this year. If you drafted him, you're feeling really good about the rushing upside.
Definitely.
I do think that there are going to be games where he gets clamped down a little bit more in the rushing game, but if Philadelphia's defense is going to look like that and they're going to be in a bunch of shootouts throwing A.J. Brown, the ceiling is the roof for Jalen Hurts this year. And Kyler Murray's playing Las Vegas, who I think is also going to be a little bit more offensively inclined over the course of the next few weeks. I think that game could have a lot of shootout potential as well. You're starting these players if you got them. Now we move to a gigantic tier 3. The tier that is probably where you might have 2 players that you're trying to decide between. And we'll try to suss this out a little bit. But honestly, guys, this is where the projections start to flatten out for us. We saw Russell Wilson with a few big downfield plays, but ultimately kind of I don't know. I watched the game last night, and it looked like that offense was sputtering, definitely dealing with the crowd noise. But ultimately, he passes for 300 plus yards. He's going to be fine for fantasy, and this is where this is maybe what you call this tier, the fine for fantasy tier. It starts with Wilson, Burrow, Brady, Cousins for me. But then look at the right hand side before you get to tier 4. I think all of these guys are in the you're fine starting them range. Derek Carr all the way down to Tua Tagovailoa, who looked pretty good against those Patriots. You getting
Yes,
excited,
sir.
Nick?
Of course, I'm excited. I've been excited the whole time. That 4th and 7 play call was absolutely insane. I don't know why Mike McDaniel did it because he's crazy, and it worked. So it is what it is. I was very excited about that game, and I think Tua is in for the most mid-year ever in fantasy football, like finishing as like quarterback 16 every week. It'd be very exciting. But Trey Lance is the guy I want to talk about. Now, I've seen a lot on Twitter about people being scared of Trey Lance, that people think that Jimmy Garoppolo is literally going to start in a couple of weeks because of that game. If you take anything from a game where there was 6 inches of rain, there's a fucking monsoon happening. After the game, they're able to slide across the field 30 yards. Then you're just silly, in my opinion. There's no way you could take anything from that game. Trey Lance could have looked like Patrick Mahomes in that game, and it wouldn't have changed my opinion at all because the weather just so heavily impacted it. I think Trey Lance is still good. I think he still has that upside. And like, really, I just don't know why people are overreacting to it because the ball was clearly wet. Like sometimes he was throwing the ball, it was clear that it just slipped out of his hand. So
Oh no. Did someone in chat say someone just dropped Lance in my league just now?
yeah,
What? All right.
that's
Obviously, you're
possible.
making a pretty significant fab budget bid if you are in that situation. Definitely make a bid on them unless you have like one of the top 5 quarterbacks,
Yeah.
SVGE, if you're in that situation. But ultimately, guys, the quarterback position obviously is about touchdowns. That's how you get large fantasy points. But rushing is such a key part of this. And Trey Lance, in horrible conditions, is rushing a ton. Like just a ton, guys. 13 times for 54 yards. He's going to throw way more than he did last week as well when
Yeah.
things are going well. So this is spike weeks waiting to happen. I don't agree with anyone dropping them. And another question on this tier as well, and we got to talk about Joe Burrow. That offense looked fine, but ended up losing the game. Matt Ryan sitting there on waivers for Max Bolognese. What's up, man? Good to see you back here. You starting Joe Burrow or Matt Ryan? To me, it's still pretty obviously Joe Burrow,
Yeah,
even with T
pretty
Higgins,
clearly.
right?
Yeah, pretty clearly. I mean, that game was awful. That was it seemed like both the teams that were in the Super Bowl forgot how to play football, right? In week number 1, like Matt Stafford and the Rams looked awful. The Bengals should have been nowhere near close winning that game, right? That should have been a game where if Mitch Trubisky was any good, the Steelers could have scored 42 points in that game. Like, how can you turn the ball over that many times and then not do better? I don't know. But Joe Burrow threw 4 fucking interceptions and somehow had like 25 fantasy points. That's just
Right.
how good the guy is.
It also shows that this offense wants to be explosive. It doesn't
Yeah,
it doesn't happen every single week, but 30 point games are coming for Joe Burrow and company. We hope T
100%.
Higgins gets better, gets into the lineup. But Hayden Hurst made himself known. I think he was tight end 5 in targets in week 1. That'll work.
Yeah, someone real quick before we move off this tier. Matthew Stafford obviously had a bad game in week number 1. This week he plays up against the Falcons, I believe, and come on. He's going up against the Falcons. The Falcons had a traditional choke yet again. That was actually insane.
Yeah.
They were losing. They had on ESPN, it said they were 95% likely to win that game and they lost again. Like, it was so funny because everyone knew that was what was going to happen. Like, just watching the game, you're like, oh, this is going to be a game they choke away. But Matthew Stafford here up against the Falcons defense, I expect a humongous bounce back. For Cam Akers, who we might talk about, is that video tomorrow? That stream?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We'll talk about must start
Yeah.
running backs and we'll break down our tiers there. One thing I do have to mention, I was at the bar watching that game and someone in Atlanta gear, clearly rooting for the Falcons. The game ends, calmly finishes his drink, puts it down, turns to his buddy and goes, "Wow, that was one of the most creative ways I've ever seen an Atlanta team lose." Just calmly, clear as day, tranquil, devastated. Hilarious. I do think that Atlanta team, you called them sneaky good. They look sneaky good to me. I mean, Mariota's
Yeah.
probably sitting there on your waiver wire. What do you think about Mariota as a rest of season play? We still have him in this tier 4. We're going to get there in just a minute, try to suss these out, but I kind of think the upside is there from a rushing standpoint. Like if you lost
Yeah.
Dak, he might be my favorite pickup.
Yeah, Mariota is incredibly interesting just because of how much rushing upside he has, right? It's not that he's like this elite passer, but we could just see at any point in the game him just run out of the pocket and run 70 yards like the guy on the other side of the field, Taysom Hill, did in that game. Shout out to Taysom Hill. But Marcus Mariota is in a pretty decent situation. He did not throw the ball really at all to Kyle Pitts, which was very shocking, in my opinion, right? Why not throw the ball to your best receiver? But hey, Olamide Zacchaeus had a all right game. So Marcus Mariota's in a pretty decent spot. And if he keeps playing like that, he's not getting benched.
No, Desmond Ritter is not going to be seen anytime soon. And we're talking about a top 10 fantasy finish in most scoring platforms, 20 fantasy points.
Yeah.
Hey, guys, that's what 12 rushes for 72 yards will do for you. Obviously, he gets a touchdown as well. He also threw 33 times. So 215 passing yards is actually an underperformance in that regard. But again, if you're adding 70-plus yards on a touchdown on the ground, you're adding running back 2 level performance from your quarterback. That's a cheat code. It's a cheat code. So I think I'm really excited for Mariota. He is my number 1 waiver wire pickup if you lost Dak Prescott and you're looking for a long-term solution and you don't want to just play the streaming game. Anybody else you want to mention here from a matchup standpoint or from they're ranked too low? Like, I don't think you can really say Wentz, Fields, or Tagovailoa, they've proved anything by having decent games in week 1. That's why they're at the bottom of tier 3. But if you have no one better, you shouldn't feel bad and go racing to the waiver wire for one of these tier 4 players.
Yeah, someone I want to bring up now. Again, I don't want you to start him this week, but Tannehill. If Tannehill looks like how he did on Sunday against the Giants, 2-3 weeks in a row, and I think Tannehill's pretty good, his ass is going to get benched. I realized that during the game. The Titans should not have lost that game. The Titans should have easily beat the Giants. They lost because Saquon Barkley just ran a train on them and because Ryan Tannehill wasn't playing very well. I think if Tannehill plays this bad multiple weeks in a row, that there's a legitimate chance that Malik Willis plays, and I did not see that happening at all in the offseason. Like when I was looking at stuff for drafts, I still think Tannehill is good, but my radar, the pendulum on Tannehill on my nervous scale is at an all-time high right now. What do you think about Tannehill real quick?
Whoa. I have not watched the game film. I'm not a huge film grinder, but yeah, this is a situation where they drafted a quarterback who fell in the draft, performed well in the preseason. Not to say that that weighs super heavily on a team that thinks that they have playoff aspirations, but look, any quarterback can implode, and we saw the efficiency fall off a cliff last year. They're doing some weird stuff in that offense. Dontrell Hilliard ends up with a huge game. They got to figure it out. What was it? Kyle Phillips as well out-targeted Treylon Burks. I mean, Treylon Burks was fine in terms of snaps per route run, but they need to figure it out fast in Tennessee. And then Derrick Henry, of course, we'll talk about it more tomorrow, totally underutilized. I don't know what the heck's going on. So I guess you're right.
Yeah, no, I don't think he's going to get benched like instantly. Like his game was all right, but like you can almost see when you're watching the game, like how good could this offense be if their quarterback had that crazy rushing upside? Like how can you stop that with Derrick Henry? Like that's what I started thinking during the game. Now maybe I'm wrong. I mean, Tannehill didn't throw any interceptions or do anything crazy, but I don't know. I just feel like he missed some key passes that he definitely could have made, and it would have made the team win the game.
Just, kind of a mediocre game all around. Exactly 33 pass attempts, the same amount we were talking about with Marcus Mariota. 266 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 rushing attempts, 7 total yards. And one thing we could say, again, going back to that same Mariota conversation, is that Cordero Patterson looked like he was running with, like, freight train size holes all day long because of the respect that defenses were giving to the rushing upside of Mariota. Insert Malik Willis into the Tennessee offense, you have to expect that suddenly, if you have to respect that, oh no, you've got Derrick Henry running through the holes, running through the bigger holes. Same thing has happened in Baltimore before in certain years with Lamar Jackson, but interesting point. I wouldn't say before week 4, but I think it's a yellow flag, might turn red if we have a bad week 2.
Yeah, and did you see that hit on Derrick Henry that the Giants guy laid into him? I've never seen Derrick Henry get hit by that. Derrick Henry's running, and this guy just puts his shoulder into Henry, and Henry flies backwards like he just got hit by a freight train. That was crazy. I don't think I've ever seen someone actually stop Derrick Henry. Like normally they like grab his legs, and then there's like someone else that comes and grabs him up top, and they throw him down. This
I'm
was
looking
just
at it right
shoulder.
now. Whoa. Wow. He got like thrown.
Yeah, he got
Whoa.
laid out. It was
Okay.
impressive.
The Giants really showed up on Sunday. Like Saquon looked good. We'll talk about them more. Daniel Jones wasn't fantastic, and I don't know what the heck's going on with the receiving core, but they look like they're going to get the job done. Brian Daboll has this offense and this whole team in a much better situation than I think we all thought they would be after a shaky preseason. Let's move on to tier 4 here because I think a lot of people are working from that tier. We've got players that we've already started to talk about here. Mariota, Tannehill. I think I'm taking chances in starting both of those players. Same with Matt Ryan this week. If he's your best option or he's a waiver wire pickup and you've got Dak Prescott to deal with, I think he's going to be just fine playing Jacksonville. Trevor Lawrence, though, in that same game environment, were you impressed at all? Like, what do you think of him going forward? Obviously gets Kirk involved a lot. 13 fantasy points isn't going to do it, though.
Yeah, Trevor Lawrence did not move the needle at all. Like, the fact that Carson Wentz looked better than him is shocking. Like, Carson Wentz is terrible. Trevor Lawrence was pegged to be this crazy player. And, I mean, I watched his play at Clemson. Like, it was obvious that he was going to be good. So when's that going to show up? Like, have we really seen a lot out of Lawrence at the NFL level yet? No. Might because he's on the Jaguars. But he doesn't interest me at all. Like, I'm hoping he has this big year. I'm hoping that at some point it clicks and Lawrence is this elite quarterback that I think he has inside of him. He's got that dog in him. But right now, for Trevor Lawrence, I don't want to play him. Like, I'm just being honest. I'd rather play Mariota, Matt Ryan. Now, I'd definitely play Lawrence over Jared Goff or Tannehill, but
I think I'd play Jared Goff at home versus Washington over Trevor Lawrence right now.
Okay, that's fair. I mean, Lawrence just, I don't know what it is. I mean, maybe James Robinson just is going to steal all the touchdowns, and that was an awful call by me. Shout out to me. The guy gets like 3 carries, scores 2 touchdowns. Amazing.
Well, yes. I mean, he looked good. I'm happy for James Robinson, but it was a little bit more balanced than the fantasy scoring would lead you to believe. Anything else about tier 4? I do want to move to the tight end position because I know people got questions, and as you do, I'm going to see if we can have some questions in chat that I can help break down for you guys.
Yeah, I think we're basically good on the quarterbacks. The one guy that I definitely don't want anyone to be panicking on, we already talked about him slightly, is Aaron Rodgers. He had an awful week 1 last year. People were panicking. Don't panic yet. Now, again, I'm not saying that he's like a must-start quarterback this week, but he's going up against the team he owns, the Bears. If you remember last year, he said to the camera that he owns the Chicago Bears. So entirely possible that he plays quite good against them again, as he always does.
I own you. I own you. All right. Is there anybody in this next tier we have to talk about? Daniel Jones. All right. I'm going to name you some players. Tell me your favorite. Daniel Jones, Baker Mayfield, Davis Mills.
I would say that my favorite player out of there is Davis Mills.
Okay. I think by a hair for me, it's Baker Mayfield playing the Giants. Yeah, you're looking at a dozen fantasy points. Okay. Davis Mills, Mitch Trubisky, Jacoby Brissett.
Davis Mills.
Okay. Davis Mills, Geno Smith, Daniel Jones.
Still going Davis Mills. I mean, Geno looked good.
Interesting.
Geno looked good last night. That's a flash in the pan. Come on. There's no way next week he's going to come. Who are they playing next week?
They are playing the San Francisco 49ers at San Francisco.
Yeah, good luck, Geno. Yeah, that's not a good look. His story hasn't been written off yet, right? He didn't, like, come on, dude. Like, you act like you had this crazy performance. Like you threw it to a wide open tight end. Congrats. You ran the ball a couple of times. The fucking Denver Broncos were scared the whole game. I don't understand what happened. Like I watched some of the highlights of that game. I watched the whole game, and I'm still confused as to what happened. Like I'm still shook today. It's unbelievable. Geno Smith isn't good.
The Manning cast, did you see the replay with Manning just there going
Yeah, no, I was watching the Manning cast
so
when it's on.
good.
I just watch it because I think it's funny. And Shannon Sharp was drinking a lot. He was getting angry. It was
Yes.
hilarious. Like they weren't running, like they weren't doing anything. He's like, hand it to Javonte Williams. Then Melvin Gordon's out there, and Shannon's like yelling at the TV, "Where's Javonte?" And then they fumble all the time. That was an awful game. But yeah, don't believe in Geno Smith and Mac Jones. To everyone who liked Mac Jones, what happened to your little guy, man? He was awful.
And he's dealing with back spasms now. Looks like he'll play week 2, but questionable status. Baker Mayfield's the one who scored the most points. Still the one I might choose out of that group. We only have about 15 minutes left, so let's hop over to the tight end position. And we'll go real fast. I'm going to answer some of your tight end questions. I see them there. Just want to tell you guys, though, now is a great time to check out our DFS offerings, because if you are a newer DFS player, you feel like I can't get in with the sharks, with the pros, and it feels overwhelming at times to get into those DFS streets. Now is a great time to check out what we've got over at Stokastic. We have new tools for hand builders, making things incredibly simple for people making, say, 2 to 5 lineups a week for DFS. And you can currently check that stuff out with a great free trial for 3 days to get all of the premium access. And if you are a returning customer, you can still use promo code SCRAMBLE, SCRAMBLE, to get 7 days of access for $7 to check out the lineup builder tool, the player compare tool that does 1v1 and 2 versus 2. It's a really great time to check it out. The same attentiveness that we've had to professional DFS players for years, we're now trying to bring over to people who are just dabbling, just playing 5 to 10 lineups. So just want to encourage you, check it out over at stokastic.com. And while you're at it, follow the Stokastic DFS channel, our big brother channel, the one that started it all, over at Stokastic DFS on the YouTubes. Thanks for throwing up all these tiers. That's exactly what I wanted, Lepri. What a good co-host. Because the S tier, you're starting Mark Andrews, Travis Kelce every single week. Then in the middle, every single year, guys, it just gets flatter than we realize. Tier 2 is big. We're starting every single one of these players in these groups. In this mid group. Dallas Goedert is the one I want to highlight, because Devonta Smith had a big old goose egg. And besides A.J. Brown, Goddard looks to be heavily featured in this Philadelphia offense.
Yeah, who's surprised by that? Not me. I said that all offseason, that Devontae Smith was not going to be as involved, and everyone like wet their pants after that take, and we saw what happened. Now, obviously, I'm not going to victory lap week 1. I saw the craziest victory lap real quick on Twitter. Someone tweeted out that Trey Lance scored 9 points, and some other quarterback that can't run the ball scored 4 points. And the fact that Trey Lance can run the ball is why you drafted him. That's why he got 9 points. Like, what a fucking stupid victory lap. I'm sorry about that. I saw that last night, and I was like, who thought that? Like, how did you think this was okay? But I do want to talk about real quick, if we're done with tier 2, because I agree with you. Start all these guys.
Yep.
Kittle is banged up. I want to talk about Dawson Knox, because Dawson Knox sucked in that game. He was in for a lot of the snaps, but didn't really do much. Now people are going to overreact. Don't overreact to Dawson Knox, because literally before the game that day, they took the contract out and gave him a humongous contract. Dawson Knox isn't just going to fade away. I understand that Gabe Davis, Stephon Diggs ate in that game, but there's no reason that next week Dawson Knox couldn't score 2 touchdowns, right? Are you still with me that you think Dawson Knox is still a very viable player, that you shouldn't panic?
100%. Also, that offense was getting all the explosive plays at once. Sometimes they're going to have grind them out drives where they get into the goal line situation and teams trying to make a goal line stand, and suddenly they got to get creative. That's when the tight end gets involved. Don't overreact. Yeah, it's an 86% snap share on the Buffalo Bills offense. It's really going to be the same thing we're talking about tomorrow with Devin Singletary. You're not going to have 30 points a game, 15 points a game like you are going to expect with some of these other tier 2 players, but the ceiling is the same as those tier 2 players, and that's why they're deserving of your attention. Zach Ertz is that player where the box score makes him look better than what I
He
really
was.
thought I saw on the field. 4 targets. I guess that's technically the same as Dallas Goedert, but Goddard's over there in Philadelphia making explosive plays. Ertz is catching passes 3.5 yards per target. One happens to be in the end
Yeah.
zone, so it works out for you. Be
Yeah,
careful
but
there.
I was just going to mention Zach Ertz was also like banged up going into the game, so I don't think we should necessarily take too much away from that, like off of that, because it is possible that Zach Ertz was still a little bit hampered by injury, and then maybe next week too. But eventually he will be healthy, and maybe we see him, not 4 seconds or not 4 meters away from the quarterback.
Yeah.
4 meters might be far, actually. I don't know what the hell
If
a
we
meter
are
is.
switching to meters, could you imagine the chaos amongst the fantasy football world?
Yeah, no idea what the hell a meter is. I don't know why I
What is
said
our
that.
points per meter? Oh my gosh. Speaking of speaking of a little bit more efficiency, Albert O showed up last night. All 3 tight ends for the Denver Broncos were involved, but 5 targets, or excuse me, 6 targets, 5 receptions, just 33 yards, 5.5 yards per target. He's viable. He's viable in Russell Wilson's offense. It's
Yeah,
official.
no. Someone explained to me why the hell that Russell Wilson never threw to a tight end in his life, and then now just force feeds the ball to all the tight ends. Like, what the hell was that? Like, why are you not throwing to Cortland Sutton? Like, why are you throwing it to what was their backup? Like, the second string guy's name was like sort of the S, I think. Like, why are you throwing him the ball? This guy can't even catch the ball. Throw it to someone else.
It's Andrew Beck. I got a
Andrew.
text. I got a text from a buddy, all caps in the middle of the game. Who is Andrew Beck? It's like,
Yeah, I don't know who the hell Andrew Beck is, if I'm being honest with you.
I don't think we're putting the second and third tight ends in starter position, but it does look to be a more spread out offense in Denver when then they're going to take downfield shots to these playmakers, Judy and Sutton. I mean, every time they did get the ball, it was like, they're going to take it to the house right now. Sutton and
Definitely.
Judy both looked amazing with the ball in their hands. So I'm sure there are going to be better days ahead. Robert Tunyon definitely looks like is going to be
Yeah.
viable, especially if the Packers see better days overall as an offense. And Higbee, if I'm not mistaken, is the one who actually led the entire tight end position in targets. So even though his fantasy scoring is mediocre, we'll chase 11 targets all day long here at Stokastic Fantasy Football.
Yeah, and Higbee was one of the bigger targets for me all offseason. I like Higbee a lot. He's definitely available in some leagues, I would assume, because not everyone's drafting 2 tight ends. And Higbee wasn't a guy that, especially, it depends on the platform you play on, but depending on where players are ranked, that determines who's available on the waiver wire. Like, just because some player is like 10% owned on NFL, they might be 40 or 50% owned on Yahoo because the rankings on Yahoo just have the player ranked higher. So someone might take him with their last pick, but Higbee's in a really good spot.
That's a great point. Someone asks, Higbee or Dalton Schultz? I think Schultz, because he's definitely in that higher floor, higher ceiling tier, that tier 2 for us.
Yeah, I'm still to play Schultz, but oh man, do I really want to have my tight end be having the ball thrown to him by Cooper Rush? Do you think anything's going to happen there? Like, do you think? Because I think it's entirely possible they just trade for someone.
I don't actually. I don't. I think they're going to hold on to him, and Jerry Jones is being positive about maybe getting him back closer to 4 to 6 weeks. I think that's a little optimistic, but that is where they're at. I mean, Dak is fairly young still, and you got to be kind of devastated for him because it looked kind of like a menial hit, but that's how it goes with these hand injuries for quarterbacks. Hey, I just want to give a shout out, Max Bolognese, one of the best sauces in the game, and also just signed up with the Scramble promo. Hey man, thanks so much. Honestly, it does truly nothing for Nick and I, but we're just really happy that you guys are taking advantage of this because we really do believe in the stuff we've got going on, especially the DFS side. I mean, Alex Osimo Baker, Steve the Colts Buzzer, they are putting in incredible work hours. And I think what they've really done this year in a way that they haven't done before is kind of reached out to the larger pool of fantasy football players, the masses, if you will. And now we're trying to get you guys involved into the community. And we're so happy you're here. Thanks for hanging out. And we can't wait to keep answering your questions all season long. So we just talked about feelings about Schultz while Dak is gone. I think that Schultz is actually a little bit higher floor with a backup quarterback because they tend to target tight ends and running backs at a little bit higher rate. Schultz or Goddard, for me, it's Goddard. Even though you only got 4 targets, I want to chase the explosiveness of the Philadelphia offense. who, by the way, are now the fifth best odds to win the Super Bowl with the Dak Prescott injury news.
That's a little crazy, but yeah, I would agree on Goddard. I'd probably play, for example, I would play Pitts, Waller, Goddard, Hawkinson over Schultz. Do you agree with that?
Pitts, Waller, Hawkinson for sure. And who did you say?
Goddard.
Who else?
And then Goddard.
Yep, over Schultz. So he's the bottom of that tier 2. He might even fall into that tier 3 just because of the quarterback situation. Blake asked an interesting question. We're kind of right there, and I want to move us along. David Njoku, Cole Kmet, or Gerald Everett, who had a big game, looked really good for the Chargers there. That awesome touchdown right at the pylon there. What do you think of him going forward and these 3?
Yeah, I'd probably go Everett this week because of the fact that Keenan Allen's banged up. I think that could just give him more targets in the offense. I think Cole Kmet's going to be just fine, though. Again, I'm not panicking off of one game. I had him score 0 points in multiple of my leagues. I just rolled him out there. I said, screw it. Didn't work out for me, but I do think going forward, like they really just don't have too many players to throw the ball to. So it's just bound that he's going to see a decent amount of targets in this offense. So I'm not panicking yet. Again, some crazy game in the goddamn monsoon doesn't care.
Okay, so there's your answer there. I think you're taking Everett right now in this Thursday matchup. And then I would agree with there. And then this is an interesting trade question that Cody brings up. Pitts, which side do you want? Pitts and Garrett Wilson or Goddard and Patterson? Here's what we're going to assume, that you're covered depth-wise at the position you're giving up. So which side do you want?
Oh, sorry, I kind of talked over you. I don't think I want anything to do with Garrett Wilson right now, to be honest with you. Like, until Zach Wilson comes back, we're going to be waiting weeks for that. So I'd probably just go with Goddard and Patterson. Patterson figuring out that he's like this elite running back. I saw this on Twitter at 31 years old. Must be so sad for him, right? Imagine getting to this point in your career. You've been playing for 10 goddamn years, and then you finally realize, wow, if only these other teams gave me the ball. Look how good I could have been. It's truly shocking. It really is how good Cordell Patterson is. And look, I was kind of cautious in the offseason on Patterson. I drafted him, but I wasn't ever excited. I wasn't like, holy shit, I got Cordell Patterson. But now I'm thinking it's almost like last year all over again. You have to start Cordell Patterson because the amount of upside he has. And then one of the other running backs on the team got banged up. So it seems like Cordell Patterson is just locked into the RB1 role. And unless Algier really starts to break out, then I think Cordell Patterson's in for potentially another top 12 season.
So the upgrade from Goddard to Pitts, theoretically, is not enough to get rid of the RB1 production, the low RB1 production that we can kind of have project in for Patterson going forward.
Yeah, and what happened to Pitts last game? Now, again, I'm not panicking, but like, could Goddard a couple weeks of the season outscore Pitts? And then Patterson's going to easily outscore Garrett Wilson. And Patterson, again, he has that, like, not game-breaking upside, but that week-winning upside to get you a top 5 running back performance every week. He's basically a wide receiver that plays running back. It's insane. So I'm going to be all aboard the Patterson trade, and this might be an overreaction. But based on what we saw last year, I don't think it is.
I don't think so either, and I can't wait to talk about it more on the running back video tomorrow. Did any of you guys have the guts to start Taysom Hill where he was tight end eligible? Because he had a pretty good game there. That was pretty fun. I want to answer a few questions here right at the very end. You going Rodgers or Derek Carr this week?
Oh, I'm definitely going Derek Carr. I like Rodgers as well, but I just think Derek Carr is in a much safer situation, and they have pretty similar upside weekly.
Yeah. Playing Arizona, likely shootout. Aaron Rodgers playing Chicago, where they might just be fine, kind of having a ground and pound game, win it for them. I have them, I think they're like back-to-back in the expert consensus rankings right now, and I think that's going to be about where we have them when the Stokastic projections come out, but I think I would agree Carr by a hair. I saw, Pat Freiermuth, started with confidence. I really liked him going forward, especially if Trubisky is going to check down so often. There will be better days ahead for George Pickens. I do want to say, is there anybody in tier 5, this Gesicki, Fant, Logan Thomas, Mo Alley Cox, Brevin Jordan tier, that makes you go, why aren't they in tier 4? Why aren't they up there? Because once you get into this mid-tier tight end, it's slim pickings. It's tough already.
Yeah, I don't think I'd move any of them up. I mean, Gesicki didn't really do much in that game. The Dolphins as a whole didn't do much. I think they just went out there and like realized they were going to win. So they didn't do anything crazy. Like Tua didn't make any crazy throws. Like I feel like if the Dolphins are in a game this week, maybe where they have to actually try to score a decent amount of points to beat the Ravens, then maybe that's when you see Tua sling the fucking thing 50 yards down the field to Tyreek. But right now, I'm staying away from Gesicki. I do, though, believe that Logan Thomas is in for a pretty decent season once he's pretty healthy. And then also, Brevin Jordan got cucked by OJ Howard. I cannot believe that I actually got a useful week out of OJ Howard that I drafted months ago in best ball. I can't believe it.
Our best ball early drafts are celebrating. Our Brevin Jordan starts are deflating. This has been a lot of fun, guys. Thank you so much for hanging out, for all these questions, for joining over at Scramble. Max, special shout out to you guys, and any of you who sign up and let us know in the chat. We'll shout you guys out as well. We're working on some new and improved visuals here as well. We're obviously going to get the chat back onto the screen, and it's going to be a whole lot of fun talking every single position with you. We're trying out the onesie positions first on Tuesday, QB and tight end, and then we'll spend more time on Wednesday and Thursday on the specific positions. We know you guys have a lot of flex questions, running back and wide receivers. And then get your questions into us. You can either comment below on the video or hit us up on Twitter. He's at NotoriousFNTSY. I'm at Draftaholic, because we're excited to answer your questions every single Friday. Quarterbacks, tight ends down. We'll have the Stokastic ranks up for you. Any last words for the people before we get out of here, Nick?
Yeah, make sure if you guys have questions, you leave them in the comment section. Right now, if you just ask them in the stream chat, there's probably 0% chance that we're going to get to it. But if you ask in the comment section, I always log into both accounts and try to answer as many questions as possible on my videos. Like if you make a video, I'm not trying to steal your thunder and answer a question on your video, but if it's any of mine, I always answer the questions. And then on Notorious Fantasy, I also answer all the comments on there. I will also be live Thursday night as well. We do have the Thursday stream this is 10 a.m. every single day, Tuesday through Friday. I will be live Thursday night answering questions prior to kickoff at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So make sure you guys check that out as well.
It was a lot of fun on Thursday, side by side with our DFS Live Before Lock. We have so many offerings for you this year in the NFL world over at Stokastic Fantasy Football, the Notorious Fantasy channel, and of course, the Stokastic DFS channel. Follow this man at NotoriousFNTSY. I'm at Draftaholic. We will be back tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern on the dot. For Nick, I'm Matt. We'll see you guys later.